Hi there. My name is Ron Eads, or Ronnie Eads, or Ronald L. Eads, depending on the occasion that we're in. I was born and raised in a little town right outside of Birmingham called Tarrant City. The way I got started playing saxophone was at the age of 4, I was diagnosed with asthma. And the doctor told my parents, he said, you would be doing well to get him a wind instrument because that will help with his asthma, that will help with his lungs and all his respiratory problems. That's what he needs to do. So that's what I did. And I'm still at it at 82. The instruments that I do play, first one I played in school was oboe. And I had a chance to be in the Birmingham Symphony because my band director played oboe and his wife. And I think I played about a week and I said, no, no, this ain't gonna work. So I was already playing in a rock band. I said, I'm going back to the rock band. I was making more money then than a lot of college graduates were making. I left, started playing professionally when I was 15 years old with a group called Jerry Woodard and the Esquires. And we played all over the United States. And then we finally went to Pensacola and stayed down there for about 10 years. During this period of time, there was a DJ. Well, he was a producer in Nashville producing records, and then he moved to Pensacola where we were, and he was wanting to continue producing, so he found a couple of guys and wanted to produce them. So he liked the way myself played, and Barry Beckett, which was one of the Swampers, and another guy, and he flew us up to Muscle Shoals. At the time, I'd never heard of Muscle Shoals. I didn't even know where it was. So we landed here, and we did the session, and that was my first really major session. And we cut a song called I'm Your Puppet, written by Dan Penn, Spooner Oham. And we had 3 horns. One of the horn players was Jack Peck, trumpet player, with one arm. And then I played tenor. And then we had a trombone player, which everybody will know, David Hood, which is one of the other Swampers. And they said, you lying, David Hood didn't play no trombone. I said, oh yeah, David played trombone. He played it well. So that's my first session that I did up here in Muscle Shoals. And then I went back to Pensacola, still doing club jobs. And a couple of the session people left Rick at Fame. So Rick had heard Barry. So he called Barry and said, Barry, I need you up here. So Barry went up there. And about 3 or 4 months later, Barry called me and he said, Rick wants to put a horn section together. Are you interested? I said, I'm on my way. And then I stayed with Barry until I could get established. And I just sit down at Fame every day. And Rick said, you still here? I said, Rick, I'm going to be here. You hire me. I ain't going nowhere. So finally he said, do you play Barry? And I said, yeah, I play Barry. And I didn't have a Barry. So I was friends with Charles Stratford up at Muscle Shoals High School. And I went up there. I said, Charles, I got a big chance to play on Clarence Carter's session, play Barry, and I'll have one. He said, get that right over there. So he helped me out. And after that, I started playing Barry, and I went and bought a Barry. So that's how I first got started doing sessions in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. Well, then after I moved up here to Muscle Shoals and did start doing sessions, then we put the horn section together, which was Harrison Calloway, Harvey, And let's see, trumpet player, we had Jack Peck and another guy playing. And then that was sort of called the Fame Gang. Rick named us the Fame Gang. And the members were Jesse Boyce on bass, Freeman Brown on drums, Clayton Ivy, which moved up from Pensacola, got him up, playing organ and keyboards. And that lasted quite a few years under Rick Hall. And we were signed with several labels. Capitol was the last one, and I think Atlantic and another one during a period of almost a bunch of years that we were there. The way the Muscle Shoals Horns got started, we were, as the Fame Gang, at Rick's, we were exclusive. We could not play at any other studio. And after our contract ran out with Capitol, then we decided that we wasn't going to re-sign with Rick. We were going to go freelance. So freelance, you had to have a name. So we had worked with major labels at Rick's for years. So we went freelance and we started calling it the Muscle Shoals Horn Section. That's how that it came into being. And it was still the same three. And then in 1972, I think we added Charles Rose, trombone player. And that really pulled the group together. We could play anything. I'd play tenor, alto, Barry mainly. Harvey played flute, great flute player, and tenor. Harrison played trumpet, flugelhorn, and Charles played trombone. And we could match any instrument that they needed as far as session work goes in horn section. And that really took off because we had a lot of hit records in our pocket by then, and a lot of the record companies found out that we were freelancing. Of course, we sent them a little letter to help out, and then they started calling, and the rest is history. We played at Fame and Muscle Shoals Sound when Jimmy and them left and went and opened up Muscle Shoals Sound Studio. And then Clayton and Terry got Wishbone Studio over here, and we did a lot of sessions here and at Broadway. And then we did sessions in New York for Lieber and Stroller that had out all the coaster stuff. We did sessions up there. And Philadelphia, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Chicago, Memphis. So we were traveling at most all the major studios after that, which fun time. Playing with Elton John, the way we got that job was he had been using Tower Power horn section out in LA, and they had cut an album themselves, and they were going out on the road with just Tower Power. And so his office down in LA were panicking because they didn't have a horn section, and it wasn't long before they did it. So his sister was John Reed's secretary. She worked for John Reed Enterprises, which did all of Elton's stuff. So she said, well, I'll call my sister. And that was Jerry Wexler's wife. So she called Jerry and she said, Jerry, Elton's in a pickle. He needs a horn section. And Jerry said, not to worry. Let me call Ronnie. So they called. We was in session at Muscle Shoals Sound, and they called down there to get her number. And he said, Elton John needs some horns. So we talked to him about it, and he said Elton needs horns on 12 shows that he's doing. And we worked out the price and everything, which is great. And then we flew to LA at the proper time. And we got out there about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and they were just finishing up with a rehearsal. And Elton came over, we met him, the band, everybody. And he said, will y'all be ready to do a rehearsal about 3, 4 days? And we said, when's the next rehearsal? He said, 7 o'clock. And we all looked at Charles and looked at each other and we said, we'll be ready. Boy, his teeth like to fell out of his head. So we got there at 7 o'clock and we did 4 songs. And he got up off the piano. He said, stop, stop. I said, stop. Came over. I looked at Harrison. I said, well, boys, I think we're going home. And then he said, I want y'all on the whole tour. He said, you can work it out with the management, but I want y'all on everything that we do. So we wound up doing 52 cities in the United States. We did Hawaii, we did Canada, and then we flew over there to England and we did Europe. We were gone 3.5, 4 months with him. And him and John Lennon had a bet on something. I still hadn't found out what that was about. Anyway, John lost. So we were playing at Madison Square Garden in New York, and John Lennon was supposed to come out and play with us. Of course, he rode on the plane some with us. We flew on Elton's 707, just our horn section and Elton's band, and he had John flying out some with us, and Billie Jean King, the tennis star. Of course, Elton was a tennis buff, and so we got to Madison Square Garden. It was during Thanksgiving, and we had to cross over in the middle of Macy's parade. If you don't think that looked good, that was, I said, oh man, what y'all doing to us? So we had to cross over in between the parade to get to Madison Square Garden. And then we did the rehearsal. John came out and we rehearsed. And then during the show, everybody went crazy, of course, with John Lennon there. And we did Philadelphia Freedom and Lucy in the Sky and 3 or 4 more. And they made an album out of that show that we did and released it in Europe. And I think it sold pretty good. And then it finally came over here, and I don't know, I don't think it did too well. But a friend of mine found a copy of it. He said, you've got to have this. I said, how much you want for it? He said, well, I'm selling it for about $50. He said, but for you, you need it. You got to have it. Come pick it up. So I went over there and got it. And I wouldn't take $1,000,000 for that album. It had Elton John, John Lennon, and the Muscle Shoals Horns. I said, that is a prize album to me. So that's how we did with John Lennon. Shortly after that, he got shot. So we did the last live show that he did before he got shot. It was the 1974 tour. Not that I'm that old, but I was there. I think I was in diapers, but I was there anyway. And that was a most incredible show. But the whole tour was great. Elton really took care of us money wise, and we flew on his plane. And after the show, the way he did it was we would stay like in New Orleans and we would work Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, a lot of areas within an hour, hour and a half reach by the plane. And then we'd come back and stay at the hotel in New Orleans. And every show we had our own private limousine that the 4 of us had. And we would go from the airport to the show. And then we'd come back to the airport in New Orleans or wherever we were, and we had our own limousine. And Elton always say, okay, guys, I know how y'all do. Don't keep the limo driver out all night. But we did. But we had a great time. Great being out with Elton. I would do it again if we had the chance. The Muscle Shoals Horns, we had not 4, but 3 albums out. The first one was Born to Get Down, and that was the one that had the hit record on it. We had a number 5 record, R&B record on it. And we went on tour, record company. Bang wanted us to go on tour, so we opened up for Get Back, Jane Brown. on some shows, which that was amazing. We also did an album with James, and that character, he's something else. Muscle Shoals Horns, we had out 3 albums. First one was Born to Get Down, which was a number 5 hit record that we had out. And the second one was Doing It to the Bone on Areola. And we had a little success on that one. And then the third one we had was Shine on Monument Records. That one, Fred passed away, and that one never did get a lot of airplay or anything. And to me, that is still the best album that we've ever done. I think there's at least 5 or 6 hit records on that one album, but I don't know if it'll ever come out or not. Touring with other artists and playing with other artists. We didn't do too many tours. We did the Elton John tour. And then I did 2 albums with Skynyrd. And I was on tour with Skynyrd. I did the 87, 88 tour with them that they had. And also at the time I was out with Lyle Lovett when Skynyrd wasn't out. Lyle Lovett, most incredible human being you'll ever want to meet. Love him to death. He was good. And he had what he called Lyle Lovett and the Large Band. The Large Band had musicians, cream of the crop out of Nashville, and then he had the Four Horns out of Muscle Shoals for a while. And he had singers, a black group that went with him, and he had a young lady that she was incredible, like Aretha. And she was out there, Francine Reed. And they're out now, matter of fact, with a large band. And he had called me a couple of times. He said, Ron, you going out with us? I said, Lyle, I'm 80 years old. No, I ain't going out. I said, my touring is done. So when we got back in 87, 88, Gary Rossington was Skynyrd, and he said, okay, boys, y'all rest up because we're going back out in about 6 to 8 weeks. I said, hold up, bucko. You better find somebody else because I am done. I was wore out. I was getting old then. I don't know how old I was, 65, 70. And I said, I'm not doing any more tours. That's my last tour. And so far, that has been my last tour. So now I came up from Lafayette. I was down there. My daughter has been diagnosed with the disease. So her and her husband wanted me to come up here so I could try to help take care of her. So I did. And on the way up, I was moving. And guess who called me but Mike Mayhaw? And I'd worked with Mike Mayhaw 40 years ago. And he's still playing. He said, I hear you're moving back up here. Yeah, I'm moving back up. He said, well, me and the band had a meeting last night, and we decided that you don't need to look for another band because you're going to be playing with us. And I said, well, okay, sounds good to me. So I'm working with them, and I work with, Will McFarland and a lot of the other great musicians around here. There's so many great musicians in this town. And so I'm working with Mike. We call the group Tremaine, Tremayne. And everybody said, well, where'd you come up with that name? I said, well, that's Mike Mayhaw's middle name. I think his mama might have hated him, but anyway, she gave him the name Tremaine, so that's the name of the band. And we've been playing every weekend ever since I got up here for a year or two. And he's a great booking agent. And we're booked till the first of the year, every weekend somewhere. So we play a lot of gigs, and I'm enjoying it at my age. I get tired sometimes, and if I do, he'll make me sit down. I ain't sitting down. What do you think I am, old? But I'm having a great time with them. I'm enjoying it so much, and with the other musicians around here, you can't beat them. You just can't beat them anywhere. Well, the way I would describe Muscle Shoals sound was, and I don't think it has anything to do with the Singing River. I think the Muscle Shoals sound was the musicians that put Muscle Shoals on the map because of the teaching that we had from Rick Hall and Jerry Wexler, and a lot of uh, Atlantic people would come down and they would say, "Oh man, you're doing well." And the funkiness came from Jerry Kerrigan, which was the first drummer, and then Roger Hawkins and David Hood and Barry. We just had a funky sound. And Jerry and them liked it, so they brought Aretha down and we cut Aretha. And I think to me it was the musicians themselves, because we old funky people. And I don't know, everybody says, "Oh, there was something in the water." Well, I don't think the water had anything to do with it. I think it was just the creativity that was brought about by these producers that came down. But we played funky anyway. I mean, that's just how we were. We had a lot of soul. And when I was playing sax, I was always taught by black saxophone players. So I had to play like they did. But that's so. The musicians, the very few that there were during that 60s, 70s, the 80s time, to me, we put Muscle Shoals on the map. We did. Everybody knows Muscle Shoals, and they know the handful of players that did it. The legacy of Muscle Shoals, how the Muscle Shoals horns fit into it. Well, we were here during the early stages, and the horn players that Rick had before we started the Muscle Shoals horn section were out of Memphis. He used the Memphis horns. And that's how I got to Muscle Shoals, was because Rick said, "I'm tired of paying Memphis Horns triple scale to come down." So we put the horn section together, which was the Fame game. And how we fit into the legacy is, I think we fit in like the Swampers and all the other musicians. If it hadn't have been for us, there would be no Muscle Shoals music, in my opinion. So we are the legacy.